You have to go through the case manager. Then you can't. There's no. They're the liaison for all of these different programs.
Traditionally, Trevor Rogers, DDS transition advisor. Traditionally, I would say yes. You would go through the case manager because they're the one that should know about all of these different services. And if they need a little bit more support on something that's newer to them, they can always come to the Employment and Day Services Division for support. And you can always come to our division for support too, but we always need to loop in the case manager because they're the one that knows the most about the individual's funding and all of that, the support structures and their past history. So whenever our team has an inquiry about supporting someone, we always do try to loop in the case manager just to kind of get that background.
Okay.
And I think I saw another hand.
Jennifer.
Yes, hi, this is Jennifer Keatley, UCP of Eastern Connecticut. I just have a question about the goals of the group. Seeing all these day support options up here, UCP, we provide all of these except for the customized employment. My question is the goal to move out of group day supports or senior supports into individualized pre-employment and employment, or are we looking to, is there a specific number or specific program that we're looking to move people into? Or is the overall objective to be more person-centered and more community-based with each of these different programs?
Keith Lavalette, ARPA project manager. The goal is to move from a congregate setting to a less congregate setting. So it's to move from like a DSO into any of these types of programs. So it's not a one shop. It's from more congregate to less congregate, and that's what in the next section I'm going to be talking a little about the incentives.
Thank you for clarifying. And can I ask a follow-up question? Is there a particular percentage of people that we're encouraged to move out? Does the group have a number that they're trying to hit?
Yes, for the residential end of things, we're looking to move 100 people, and for the day section, we're looking to move 200 people.
And how many people are supported in a congregate setting currently in day supports?
That's a good question, and I don't have that answer. Do you have any idea, Trevor?
I don't have that answer, but I can always look into that and come back with an answer for next time.
I do know the 200, this is Keith Lavalette, ARPA project manager, the 200 is a very small number of the number of people that is currently in congregate settings. Again, the whole ARPA initiative is to make a start or a dent in this movement.
Yes, this is Jennifer Keatley again. We serve 80 in a group day support setting, so that 200 number does seem very achievable.
Well, if you want to move all 80, that would be great. we
just need the funding.
There we go. So
that is the bigger challenge, right? Because a group day support is, a 3-to-1 staff ratio, and independent, once we move out into the community, we need more staff. And with the current staffing challenges, to go to a 1-to-1 when we're funded for a 1-to-3, that is the number one challenge, as well as where do we go and are they accessible for and welcoming. So those are topics I look forward to having more in-depth discussions on.
And remind me when we get into the next section, Jennifer, I do want to touch on, with the ARPA funding, it's a time limited process. So agencies need to kind of look at what they're trying to do and do it in a way that eventually, you know, this is the incentive is time limited. Okay, Trevor, did you have anything else to add? Are you all set?
Oh, Trevor Rogers, DDS Transition Advisor. I don't have anything else to add. And I just sent the acronyms document to you as well, and I just added all of the attachments in one email just to make it easier for you, that I showed on the other screen.
All right, Keith Lavalette, ARPA Project Manager. Before we move on, there's an 86 number. I believe it's Catherine. That's you. Could you just acknowledge?
That is me, yes.
All right, thank you. I saw you come back on, and I was hopeful that that was you. All right. Now we're going to get into the incentive section. And this is just going to be another overview. Let me open this up. Okay, could people see this? Let me get to the beginning here. Are people able to see this?
Yes, we can see it.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. So I think Jennifer talked about, you know, what types of programs can these incentives work with. And what we're looking at is if an individual moves from a DSO to a GSC, to a DSO to a full-time ISC, from a DSO to a part-time ISC or part-time GSC, DSO to competitive employment, a DSO to individualized day, a GSC to an ISC, a GSC to a part-time ISC, and a part-time GSC, a part-time GSC and part-time ISC to a full-time ISC, a DSO to self-determination, a DSO to transition services, and a DSO to project search. So the amount of money to be awarded has been calculated based on 200 individuals moving out of a congregate setting. If the target number is over or under the estimated amount, adjustments will need to be made. The provider transition incentive. The sending provider. So if an individual is in the DSO, that sending provider will receive an incentive payment equal to the current authorization to reimburse the provider to maintain supports in the congregate day program for 4 months for each individual. The new placement incentive. So where that individual is going to, that provider the receiving provider providing the supports will receive an incentive payment in addition to the individual's current rate. An individual moving from DSO to either a GSC, transitional support, project search will receive an additional hourly rate equal to the current. And unfortunately, oops. Sorry about that, guys. I have. Sorry, I had a video in front of it. I couldn't read it. So an individual moving from a DSO to either a GSC, transitional support, or project search will receive an additional hourly rate equal to the current rate for the new supports provided to the individual for each hour billed up to 30 hours per week for 6 months. An individual moving from a congregate setting to ISC or customized employment will receive an additional hourly rate of $71.50 per hour for each hour billed of ISC supports up to 25 hours per week for 6 months. So here's just an example of a made-up day provider transformational plan. So the provider has a DSO program with 25 individuals, a GSC program with 40 individuals, and an ISC program with 14 individuals. The proposal is to move individuals from DSO to move 3 individuals from DSO to GSC over a 10-month period. Individual A has a LON of 5 and moves on in month 2. Individual B has a LON of 5, moves on in month 6. Individual C has a LON of 5 and moves on in month 10. The second part is to move 3 individuals from the GSE to an ISC over a 10-month period. Individual D has a LON of 5 and moves in 1 month. Individual E has a LON of 5, moves on in month 5. Individual F has a LON of 5 and moves on in month 10. They propose hiring a full-time individual in the ISE program and reduce a half-time FTE in the DSO program. So these would be the incentives. The provider transition incentives. The sending provider will receive an incentive payment equal to the current authorization of $20.08 to reimburse the provider to maintain supports in the DSO and GSE program for 4 months. The new placement incentive, the receiving provider providing those supports will receive an incentive payment in addition to the individual's current rate of $20.08. The provider will receive an additional hourly rate equal to the current rate for GSC supports, which is the $20.08, provided to the individual up to 30 hours per week for 6 months for each of the 3 individuals moving into GSE. And then the new placement incentive, the receiving provider providing the supports will receive an incentive payment in addition to the current ISE rate of $55. The provider will receive $71.50 per hour for each hour of ISE supports provided to the individual up to 25 hours per week for 6 months for each of the 3 individuals moving into ISE. So this is just what it would look like. So these are the individuals. So moving out of the DSO and the GSC program would total $54,000. For the new placement incentives, so the GSE people moving into the GSC, they would receive a total of $40,482. And then the new placement into the ISE, again, the maximum equal up to 25 hours per week for 26 weeks. That total is almost $140,000. So if this was one provider that provided all this, so the total incentive payment for moving out of the DSO would be 54. The incentive for the GSE placement is 40,482. And for the ISC is 139,425. So the total incentive payment would be 234,113. So these are questions that as a group we need to think about and discuss, and this is what we will be moving on in our next meetings about. But do we think these incentives will make a difference with the providers? Should the provider transition incentive be prorated if the individual splits their program into a part-time employment program? Should this committee consider the sub-minimum wage in making decisions about the incentives? Are there other day settings that should be eligible for receiving the incentives? How long does someone need to stay in a new setting? If they stay a month and then move back, should the provider get some type of an incentive for that? What should be provided in the provider transition plan? What involvement should individuals, families, case managers, and regional administration have in the development of provider plans? What should the approval process be for the plan? And are there other incentives that can be developed to encourage more employment-based supports? So that's the presentation so far. There's a lot of thought behind this and a lot of questions still to be answered. Robin, you have a question?
Yes, maybe I'm jumping the gun, but is there any incentive or discussion about how to incentivize private businesses to create more job opportunities?
That's a great question. And I think, again, that one of those questions we talked about, are there other incentives to incentivize? And that might be something this committee needs to discuss and put forth. Are there, I do know with this whole ARPA funding that the money can't go directly to individuals. It needs to go to the providers. I don't know if the same rule applies to a business. I don't know if we can just hand a business incentive money or not. I'd have to double check on that.
Keith,
This
this
is
is Kathleen
Robin.
Dupree, your co-chair.
Yes.
I was just going to say, we may want to make recommendations to the consultant who's working on transformational change and how we also educate businesses about existing federal incentives for hiring people with disabilities as part of our educational and outreach effort.
That's right. Okay. Let's see. Jennifer? Or, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
thank you. Oh, go ahead. Was there someone else?
Oh, no, go ahead, Jennifer.
This is Jennifer, UCP of Eastern Connecticut. I thought those questions were all great questions that we could spend quite a bit of time on each one. But I think one of the challenges with just the questions is that it presumes that providers don't want to do that anyway. That we already have people that are in our programs that we're not moving out, and maybe it's because of funding, but the other, that can be addressed by, some of these incentives. But the other component is, it's the cooperation, I guess, between providers of day program and group homes and families. Sometimes we're not all on the same page. And that is something that really needs to be addressed in team meetings. And by that, I mean, when we move from a group supported employment setting to, or a day program, a group day program setting, to some of those individualized, and the budget remains the same, that means that the individual receives fewer hours of support. So if you're living in a group home and they provide transportation to and from the day program, you're counting on a 6-hour day. And that funding may only now provide a 4-hour day for an individual. So how is that transportation or the rest of the day's supports going to be worked out? The same goes for the family members who may have a desire to be sure that the individual, their family member that we're supporting, have, I guess, more continuity of oversight or services, whether it's through the family or through a provider, and having gaps in that support is of concern for them. And which, you know, maybe those are the folks we're not talking about employment for or individualized services for. But I think if traditionally you're expecting a 6-hour day and now you're only getting a 4-hour day, or in the case of ISE, the reason it's got that $55 an hour bill rate is because the number of service hours that they get is very small compared to, you know, a 30-hour a week group day. So I think that, you know, there also has to be some education around not just the funding component and the incentive component, but the reality that those individualized services are provided at a lower number of hours than group day.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Keith Lavalette, ARPA project manager. And I think where we could get the most mileage out of trying to answer that is when the consultants come on board and trying to work with them and that, and with the communication consultant, how we communicate these issues with the other providers, with families and that type of thing, and how that works out that way. Robin, do you have another question? Your hand's still raised.
Oh, no, sorry. Let me unraise it.
Okay.
Wait, I'm not seeing that it's written. Hold on. Is it unraised? Because I can't really see that it's raised.
Yeah, that's all right. Let me move on to Susan. Susan, you have a question?
Hi, Sue Bastian, Rack West. One of the things I was concerned about, we kept talking about 6 months. The payments are for 6 months. Well, what happens after the 6 months? How does the agency provide for the extra costs that it might cost to have that person in a different program? Is DDS going to be paying for it out of DDS, you know, day and employment options money, or what? You know, in other words, does the individual that got moved, is their rate of what price they're getting for their day services, is that going to be jacked up? Because what happens after the 6 months?
Well, after these are incentive payments, so they get the rate that they get when they are doing the program. So whatever rate they normally get now, they'll continue to receive. This is above and beyond the rates that that they receive. So this is the incentive to make these moves, is to you know, if an individual moves today and gets X dollars, we're proposing they get X dollars plus this extra. And that extra is just time limited. So they don't lose the rate that they would get if they currently move. This is just, that's what's the time limited. The rates remain the same.
But if the person moved to a different program where their rates became higher because the new program, maybe they need a one-to-one staff, for example, that they didn't have before, are their rates going to be going up and staying up so that the agency doesn't have a shortfall? And if so, where is DDS getting that money to raise the rates? Not talking about the incentive. I'm just talking about the base rate for that person. If they're moving to a different program, and if that new program costs more money for the person to be in it, how is that going to be solved over the long run?
All right, I think Sean has that answer or could help with that answer. Sean, did I?
Okay, so I did want to address your question. It's a great question, and probably part of the reason why we're all here and all this change hasn't already been made. You know, Jennifer mentioned as well that there's the additional costs. I think, you know, as much as we would like to move everyone to more individualized and employment-based settings, this is, as Keith mentioned, kind of a start. This is something to move us along the way. There may be some instances where someone, you know, could be successful in employment, a more individualized setting, and maybe there is some kind of indecision, some doubts, and maybe this would help be that push so that, you know, maybe the person doesn't need 30 hours a week. They could thrive with less supports, but they need kind of that push to take that chance, have that safety net so that if they need to go back, they can. But it's just a chance for them to move forward. And, you know, there may be additional discussions around funding, you know, ongoing funding. I don't know, you know, about that, but I think our charge right now would be to help, you know, push these things forward. And as, you know, maybe the providers have some creative ways or the consultants have some creative ways to make it more sustainable. Maybe, you know, someone doesn't need X number of hours support, maybe they could be successful at a little bit less. So just my thoughts.
Thank you, Sean. Ally?
Yes, hi, Ally Smale, committee member from NEBA. Just to reiterate, as I went through very similar experiences in Pennsylvania, and so many of the same themes and topics came up. You know, how to assist our provider organizations who do provide day support to maintain their programs long term, how to be able to provide the quality support that our folks needed in order to be successful, you know, in the community and with greater independence and what have you. What I will say, it might be helpful to plant a seed. One thing that was helpful is kind of sharing staff when possible between day programs and employment provider programs. This also allowed for some really wonderful opportunities for those staff who had been in day programs for a long time to experience new certification and professional development trainings that allowed them to grow professionally in their skills and in terms of their own outcomes. That helped some of those provider agencies to really kind of transform their programs by way of their staff. And it also, during a workforce crisis, just as we stated, where you're going from needing fewer staff to needing more staff, that is, you know, a true challenge and a barrier to a lot of the work that we're considering, you know, taking on right now. But that was one way, if we can get really creative about how to utilize staff that we have. I'm not saying it's an easy problem to figure out, because we still need staff in the day programs, and then we're taking staff out of those settings and into the community. It is a puzzle, but by helping them to add those skills, that was one way to do it. And I will also say that the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals also has a very nice training program that allows staff to really grow fundamentally into more individualized and community-based supports. That might be something that the group on a whole might want to look at in terms of a resource.
Thank you, Ally. Beth?
First, Beth Catton, parent. So Keith, I wanted to ask if there was a way you could send that incentive. I think it was probably a Word document, because I don't think we received a copy of that yet. I don't know if you were able to just send that to the group, because I followed it, but I'd like to have it in writing. And then I have a question about how it's going to be chosen. So you said there's 200 slots, okay? I hate to tell you, but there's a ton more people in day programs. I mean, my son, just in his program alone, I think there's at least 150 to 200 people. Not all those people are going to want to go into this program, but the question is basically, how is that going, how are they going to be chosen? Are parents going to be asked? Are they going to ask, are they just going to go to the day programs and say, who do you think is a good candidate? So that's kind of a key point too, is who's going to be selected. And then adding to what Jennifer talked about, I have looked into, because we were having some issues with my son wanting to go to his day program since going back after COVID and not being very successful, and them not taking him out as much, and giving him opportunities, volunteer opportunities, or even going into the community. They're doing scenic rides, okay? And in my book, that is boring. I also wouldn't want to go to a mall and just walk around just for the sake of walking. That would make me crazy, and I think it has made my son a little crazy, and has caused behaviors. But to piggyback on that, we did look into an individualized program for him. I looked into Futures and I looked into Key Human Services. So there are programs out there. And as Jennifer said, his line is a 5. It actually was just increased, but it still would only qualify him for 3 days of 5 hours each, not even 6, of someone starting out at our house. They would give him the transportation, but kind of creating a program, and a more individualized program for him, which probably would be great because he could choose what he wants to do and be able to go swimming and do the things that he really likes to do rather than sitting and doing arts and crafts or not. Or looking for trouble or being a behavior problem. But that only qualifies him for 3 days. And it sounds like these incentives, that's great. That helps him get into the program, but it's not going to increase his hourly, what they're going to pay him hourly. I think that's what I'm understanding. It's an incentive for Futures or Key Human Services to say, oh yes, we'll take Gary. Great. We're going to get more money, but he's still only going to still get those 3 days. Correct? I mean, that's kind of what I'm asking. It sounds like the incentives are just incentives for them to take him. And then after the 6 months, no more incentive, and he's still going to have those 3. I was hoping that this program would increase and he could go 5 days, or maybe do a mixed thing. Because the problem with the individualized programming that I see is there's no socialization. You have that one-on-one person that comes to your house. Maybe when he goes to the Jewish Community Center to go swimming, he'll get some socialization. Or if he's in a work environment, he might get some socialization. But he's not amongst his peers. He's not with others like himself. And my son is on the autism spectrum, but he's very social, that's a whole nother story. But and I want to keep that. I want to maintain that socialization and him to be social. So that's why I raised my hand.
Well, thank you for that. And trying to answer both questions. The first part is yes, that I will include the PowerPoint with Trevor's presentation also, and get that to all the members. Hopefully within days after this meeting. I'm in charge of getting all the videos uploaded into the website too, so that takes a little while to do, but that will happen shortly. In regards to who makes the decision, basically the private provider has to develop a transformational plan saying, okay, this is what our thoughts are, this is what we'd like to do. They would submit their plans most likely to the region. All this hasn't been decided yet, but and then the regions, along with central office, would make decisions on exactly who or what providers would become part of this transformational initiative. You're right, it's a small number. 200 is nothing compared to the number of people in the day program. But again, this initiative was to just be the starting point. And hopefully down the road, DDS would be able to fund other initiatives like this. And I had said the question, or I tried to answer the question, and it looks like Beth is now frozen. I'm not sure if she heard the answer. Robin, did you have another question? Are you?
No, I think you answered that. I guess my other concern just is this, you know, how many hours they qualify for, and how many, I mean, that was kind of, it's an important thing. I mean, of course, a group supported day program is going to charge less. I understand that. I work, so I know you pay based on how much support you're going to get. And versus in one-on-one individualized is going to be more money. It's quite substantially more money. So instead of him qualifying 5 days a week at 6 hours, he only qualifies for 3 days a week at 5 hours. And even we were thinking, someone said, what about a hybrid, maybe 2 days in the day program and 3 days? But I'm like, yeah, if we use the 3 days, that's it. There's no more money left for the hybrid, So that's, and I still work. My husband actually just did retire, but he has other ideas what he wants to do with his retirement. And my son shouldn't be with us. He should be with his peers or doing his own thing at 27 years old or even beyond. So, and I'm not just talking for myself, I'm talking for many other parents that
Right.
I'm very with, and I talk to, and we're all in the same situation right now. No one's very happy with the day programming right now. I will tell you, I met with 2 other parents recently, and their young adults do not even live at home. They are in residential because of behaviors that they had. And they were all both complaining about how the day programs have really gone downhill. Their kids are doing arts and crafts. They're roaming around. They're not really going into the community. If they are, they're going on scenic rides. I mean, it's the same thing I just talked about. And we want more for our young adults while we're still alive and when we're not. And so that's just my 2 cents. So.
All right. Sean?
Keith, this is Catherine Dupree, your co-chair.
Yes.
I would hope that as we continue to work together as a committee, we can look at examples of what other states have done to offer more community integration opportunities and services instead of a traditional congregate DSO, because that might be more person-centered and individualized and integrative for some of our program participants.
Yeah, that's a great thought, Catherine. Thank you. Sean, I saw your hand up. Did you have a?
Yeah, Sean
Question?
Bannon, DDS. Yeah, so one more thing, just addressing, I know it's definitely a legitimate concern about, the limited number of hours, moving to a new program. And so in some cases, assistive technology may be a support, so that providers are using, their staffing a little more wisely, in some cases, not so staffing intensive, especially with the staff crisis. Another thing is if they're working out in the community or part of a program, there may be some other natural supports, at the job site or, whatever site there is too. So, again, this is kind of we're trying to transform things and get moving in the right direction and thinking, and definitely we need to come up with these obstacles and ways to, get around them and over them. But yeah, so just some other ways to look at things that aren't traditionally maybe as staffing intensive, again, with natural supports or assistive technology. Thanks.
Thank you, Sean. Robin, do you have another question?
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Beth said, because I think that this is a wonderful idea, but if this isn't coordinated with the individual's budgets so that there is enough money going forward after the incentive, I can't imagine anybody wanting this for their person, because it's a big unknown afterwards as to how you're going to get those extra hours. Because it's true, I looked into the same thing during COVID, trying to do a hybrid model because they weren't doing anything and there was not enough money, and my group home couldn't take her because there wasn't enough money there either. So to give a short-term incentive for 6 months kind of leaves everybody and with no coordination with the DDS Medicaid waiver money. I don't know how this would work. because people do need a certain number of hours. And yeah, I mean, maybe some people can avail themselves of assistive technology and maybe don't need so many hours. That's another incentive going on, but that's not everybody. And so anytime you go from a group supported employment to an individual, it's a lot more money and it's going to cut your hours. And I just don't see that as being a viable alternative for most people. So I really think that there needs to be commitment on the part of the state to also increase people's budgets so that they can afford to pay for these new programs after the incentive money is gone. And the pay rate also, you know, as far as the budget, I mean, the staffing shortage, I mean, that's clearly a pay issue. So, I mean, if we pay these people, the people who are doing these jobs more, there's going to be more people who are willing to do the job. So it all comes back to money. And I don't think it can be a short-term money solution.
Right. Jennifer? Or is that?
Yeah, thank you. This is Jennifer Keatley from UCP of Eastern Connecticut. I just want to, acknowledge what Robin and Beth have been saying, is clearly a problem for the folks that participate in our day programs. We, as hard as we try to have more community-based activities outside of arts and crafts, we have one staff member that calls out and that changes our entire day's plan. And, in Connecticut, we now have the paid family medical leave. And so Dr. Summeroff gives a lot of time off now that staff members obviously need, but at the same time may have kind of worked through perhaps before if they weren't getting paid and now they're getting paid. So we've got a staffing crisis and paid family leave. And those are, definitely challenges that we're facing. To Catherine's point about, looking to other states and what they've done, I'd also be curious to know not just what they've done to do the more community-based services, but who in the agencies, in the private provider agencies, does that work? Because that's one of the areas that our agency struggles is who decides what kind of activities and where they're going to be. And, are we going to the senior center or the library, or are we going to a horse farm or, therapy? We are not large enough of an agency to have a recreation director, for example. That's not in our budget. So who does that? If my staff are coming up with the activities, they are going to get foam and popsicle stick crafts. I mean, that's what they're going to fall back on. And that is not what anybody wants. It is not age appropriate. And, but I think we have to think about, who does that type of work? Is that our staff members? Is it recreation specialists, or is it somebody, at the state? Is that something that the state develops, relationships with each town? Is it part of your workforce development board? Some sort of cooperative program there? Are there some tax incentives or business incentives? I think those are all things to look at. And as far as the budget in general, to Beth's point, 3 days a week is not going to be enough for a lot of individuals who are a Lawn 5. And that's who we're talking about in our group day setting, is folks that are, Lawn 5 and up. And so that presents some additional challenges, and they're going to need 30 hours a week, regardless of whether it's individualized or group.
Thank you. It is 4 p.m. At this point. If you guys don't mind, if we can give Cynthia, she had her hand raised, an opportunity to speak. And then I did want to talk briefly about the meeting schedule, and then we'll go from there. Cynthia?
Thank you. Yeah, Cynthia DeLuise from DDS. I've spent 15 years in self-determination, so I'm really very much feeling, Beth, what you're saying. And obviously our funding is lawn-based. So that may be a recommendation that we end up, I mean, there's so many wonderful ideas. I'm overwhelmed. They're so good. And that may be one thing that we want to put forward is in looking at that again. The other thing I just wanted to say is that we have increased our allocations to the agencies so that they can raise wages. I think one of the things I've wondered about is how that does indeed kind of trickle down some of those increases, and there'll be another one in January, and how that money is being utilized. I mean, that may be out of our bailiwick, but that's something that we really need to think about. And also, our private hire staff are indeed unionized now, and there have been significant raises given most recently to the private hire staff, and will be again in January. So we are trying to address those issues, but that does not, again, speak to the 3-day, 2-day, and what we've been doing for so many years. But I did want to put out that we're conscious of needing to increase all of wages, allocations to the agencies, and it's happening. Is it enough? It may not be, and that may be a position we want to take. So thank you.
Thank you. Keith Lavalette, ARPA project manager. I just wanted to talk really quick about the meeting schedule. Is this time slot and day slot good for everybody? I know we had people finishing up vacations and things like that, but for the most part, we are meeting every other week from 2:30 to 4 o'clock. And does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Well, let me phrase it this way. Does it work? Does it not work for anybody? All right. I'll take that as it's good to go forward. So, Catherine, do you have any closing statement?
I don't. I'm just really enthusiastic about the group, and I'm glad that we really do represent a diversity of both experiences, but also opinions. So I think it's going to be great to work together.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to this. There's a lot of issues to be resolved, I guess, or try to resolve moving forward. So we got our work cut out. So I appreciate everybody's input today and look forward to meeting with everybody again. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
all.